everybody, to Papa Spice's Hot Takes with Hans and Harry. How's everybody doing tonight out in internet land? We hope you guys are doing super well. I am Papa Spice, aka Greg, and I'm here with my ever faithful sidekicks slash co-hosts, Hans and Harry.
Keep going. Keep going.
They are incredible men. They're here to serve up some hot takes as well. Harry, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful. I think the cold weather is finally here for everybody who comes to us for weather updates. Last couple nights have been pretty chilly, but I think I'm kind of getting movied out. As you guys know from the last time we recorded, we moved our schedule up a day, and in the last 15 days, I've seen either 12 or 13 movies. I've been trying to keep track, but it's like a movie a day, so it's been a lot. Philadelphia Film Festival was a lot, but no, I'm feeling good. It's fun when you watch good new content that makes you feel something again.
Nice. And Hans, how you doing? See what I did there? Wow. See what I did?
Oh man, that's like peak dad joke. That's great. I can't believe we're in November. I honestly cannot believe. Like I just this year flew. I feel like it should not be November, and it's like coming up on like our 1 year of doing this like soon. So we've been doing this for almost a whole year. So a lot, it's a lot going on in the past 11 months. But I honestly feel I woke up today thinking it was like April, but it was cold and Halloween was a couple of nights ago, so it wasn't. It just means it's November.
Man, I love this time of year. I mean, it sucks that Halloween is over because October is probably my favorite month, but November is also really nice, and I love when there's that chill in the air and a nice, cloudless night where you can see all the stars. It's a bit nippy outside. It's perfect. So this is certainly my favorite time.
What a nice thought, Greg. What a nice thought.
Thanks. This has been Nice Thoughts with Papa Spice. But nice thoughts aside, we're here to talk Dune. That's right. And not just Dune, but Dune and Dune, the 1984 version,
not to be confused.
Yes, the 2021 version. So we'll kick it off with the OG, as it were, the 84 version. Just a warning. There might be light spoilers for what is to come in Dune, because the original Dune actually covers a lot of ground, and the new one is kind of segmented. It's broken up in a part. So we don't know what's going to be in part 2, which was just announced. They could go super in depth. They could take some of the stuff from the original, who knows, but just be warned there. So Dune 84 kicks off with exposition for days. I mean, dude, my head was ready to explode. There was so much exposition here that the woman who is splaining to us actually, goes on about a 5-minute tangent, and then she fades out and then is like, oh yes, and then fades back in, and more exposition. It was just insane. There was so much sci-fi babble, and look, I read comics. I've been watching sci-fi all my life, huge Star Wars fan. There's not going to be a lot that you can throw at me that I can't wrap my head around, and I'm telling you, every other word in here was something new, some new concept, and I'm like, what is going on? So my mind is spinning and reeling from all of this dialogue, and I'm just like, I literally had no idea what she said. After it was over, it was a pointless waste of time because I didn't remember any of it or any of the crazy terminology that she said. What did you guys think about this?
So I kind of agree, because I think if I watched now, I tried to watch this movie years and years ago. And I think I remember that head floating and trying to explain the plot of Dune, which I watched this a couple days ago after I saw the newest version of Dune. And I got if I didn't see the new Dune, I would be completely lost at what she was explaining and what was going on. There's a lot. Now, anyone who's read the Dune books, there's a lot. I remember reading them about maybe 20 years ago when I was 16, and it took me a couple kind of starts to get what was going on. So the book isn't any easier. You think the movie would be a little bit better of explaining things, it doesn't. That first 5 minutes, I feel like I feel like that was necessary to be in there because if you didn't have that in there, people would like that short explanation. People would be watching that movie and what the hell's going on? Like this is like that at least gave some kind of an idea of the overall picture of the world of Dune or the universe or whatever is going on. But there's a lot of exposition and it's weird. It's a very odd way to start the movie. Like you could just do a voiceover or you could do something or like maybe narrow it down to like a minute or two. But it was like it was taking the Star Wars opening crawls and just making it 5 minutes long and no words. Like that's
it might as well been,
that's what this was. Like you can't expect people to sit there and listen to someone that like a brand new character explain a brand new concept of a movie to people. It was an odd way to start the movie. But like I said, if I didn't see the new one, I probably would maybe skip past that and be like, all right, this is it's going on too long. Like, yeah, you're right. When the head disappears and it comes back, you're like, oh no, there's more. Like this has to be some kind of a sick joke.
Literally, to me, it was like in the Bork year, the Jumblocks believed that Kerflavin, and just on and on and on. And I'm like, what the hell is she talking about, bro? Like, come on.
Like overall, the story of Dune is like, I feel like it's a very simple story, like on like paper. You could explain this easily, but there's so many different, like, there's very goofy names and very complex characters in their names, and they all can't be called Paul. And it's there's different houses, and then the Emperor, and I'm like, okay, like just give me the basic story, because I like there's 15 Dune books. You don't need to explain all of them in a 2-minute or 5-minute for the most part open little monologue. Harry, what you think?
Yeah, were you able to make heads or tails of this?
Yeah, so one of the there's a way to put yourself in 1984 when this movie came out, and you don't have a pen and paper in the theater, you don't have closed captionings, and you're just sitting there being like, huh? All right, what about the spice? What's up with spice? You mean like oregano, like pepper? Like what are we talking about here? And it's like what I think the Dune 2021 or Dune Part 1 as I'll call it for the pod does a really good job of is talking about it and having the voiceover while also showing us, kind of what's been going on or what's happening or where it could lead. It's also wild to me that there were 3 Star Wars movies before this movie, and this is how they decided to tell the movie. David Lynch has spoken before about how he feels this movie is his one failure in his career, and that he doesn't like revisiting it. He doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't care about it anymore because it kind of broke him in a way when it comes to Dune, which had its, difficulties, filming. And, it definitely looks like it was kind of put in the after, because this is like the Princess of the Emperor, if I'm not mistaken, who apparently, I guess, plays a role in, or the woman who's talking to us, who plays a role in probably later on and probably part 2 of Dune, but just doesn't make any sense here. Doesn't really do anything in the movie other than be a voiceover guide that it seems like, hey, let's try to fill the people in on what this is, because we don't really talk about it. We just jump into it. I think, to put a bow on it, I think this movie and this beginning part does a good job of setting the tone that this movie is going to be told to us and not shown to us. And basically all they're going to do is talk about, Paul is going to talk about he's the chosen one, instead of showing us why he's the chosen one. He's going to say it. He's going to say, oh, I can do this. Oh, is this the prophecy? And it's like, just show it to us. You don't need the inner voice work over of all that to like tell us. So
it's a good,
a little rough in the beginning.
I have to say, so like one of, you mentioned not having a pen and paper, but one of my friends on Facebook, shout out Dan, actually noted that in the 84 release, there were little pamphlets of all the terminology that were handed out to guests. Yeah, I guess so they wouldn't
that
be
is
confused.
So absurd.
Yeah, the fact that you need a primer with all of these terms on it in order to understand and enjoy the movie is a bit ridiculous. Like that's asking a bit much of the audience, in my opinion.
Hey, here's some homework before you start the movie. Just I know it'll be dark during the previews, but just go skim through it.
Yeah, exactly.
You bring your flashlights, turn it on.
So then when they mentioned something in the 1842 preamble of Dune OG, then you can kind of check your notes in the dark and be like, Kwisatz, what? Like, what's going on? So, yeah, it was just that it definitely set the stage for me also, and not in a good way. Costuming in this movie didn't spend a ton of the budget on costuming. I'll say that because we're in the Emperor's throne room and there's a bunch of people dressed in hefty garbage bags. And I'm like, what? Again, this is a sci-fi epic based on a much loved book. And as Harry mentioned, this is after the Star Wars movies have been out, after Alien's been out. So we see, prime sci-fi and what can be accomplished in that genre. And here it's like nothing being spent on costuming. Now, production design as a whole, I thought was pretty good. The set design, practical effects, I thought were tremendous, but costumes for some reason were just no budget going towards it whatsoever. Any thoughts on production design?
The trash bags were a little, I don't know where, I looked up before this, like this cost $42 million to make, which as of 2015, like I put note, it's like almost $100 million. So this movie cost over almost $100 million, and they're walking around with bags on them. And I will agree, like the sets were really cool. Like I think some of them were pretty neat, and they had that like futuristic vibe to it. But the other half of your movie is CGI. Like as we get to like the desert area, like of Arrakis or Dune, whatever we're gonna call it, it's a screen of a desert at night. That is all it is. And a lot of I'll admit, like I think like some of the costumes weren't like Harkonnens or Harkonnens, however, like in this one they pronounce it Harkonnens. I think the makeup was done pretty well, especially with the Baron, and I think that was kind of cool with like how messed up and pimply his face was, and I think some of the outfits were cool, but where did a lot of this money went to the CGI, which of the if they were practical sets, I think they looked pretty cool with the production, but other than that, I'm confused where a lot of this money went to. Did they have to pay Patrick Stewart? Like I don't think he was a big name. Like was Sting really asking for that much money?
It was all Toto.
yeah.
Our production design.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it wasn't bad at some moments, like especially when they were on shoot, I'm forgetting the name of the planet where the Harkonnens were at. Like I feel like it did a good job of
differentiating. Data Prime or something Prime.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Getty.
So I think they did a good job of like setting the tone for each of them, similar to the to Dune Part 1. As well, but like there's definitely some bad shots in this, and like for me, like when you see 3 Star Wars movies, it's going to be funny when we talk about Dune Part 1 and the comparing that against Star Wars now. But for me, like you have 3 Star Wars movies and like kind of the templates there, and like don't get me wrong, when you watch some of the older Star Wars, you're like that's pretty CGI'd, but it's like at least it like goes with it. And like I think part of filming back then in the desert is probably super difficult to do and to probably shoot. And so some parts were cool, some of the costumes were all right, or distinguishable. At least they did a good job of not making everybody 1 or 2 bland colors. But it definitely has some cringy moments, especially now, watching it in 2021.
Okay. So, going back to the plot and just befuddlement on my part, we're in the Emperor's throne room, and he's kind of going through his plot, I guess, if you will, whatever you want to call it. But it wasn't super clear to me why he wanted House Atreides gone. And even like some of the creatures and the people that were in there, like that, there was that giant headworm thing that showed up in like a space train, and I'm like, what is this? Like, who are these people? What is going on? Like, I didn't understand any of it. I had to look up this stuff after the movie, which is not a good sign. I mean, I went in clear-eyed and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and all that stuff, clear-minded, and I couldn't fathom any of this. Like, I just couldn't parse out what was going on with half of this. So I don't know. That was a little disappointing. And then I was surprised to see Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart himself, pop up in this movie, because I did not know he was in it. Very happy. But then he starts doing something with Paul in like boxes, like these weird CG boxes. I'm like, what is this, bro?
They look like Minecraft characters. That's what they look like.
Dude, that's perfect.
They look like Minecraft. They honestly, when I saw it, 100%. I'm like, what's that? I'm like, that's Minecraft. Like, it's just the big square boxes.
100%. And again, maybe I missed a line of dialogue, benefit of the doubt. Maybe they had it in there. But they just start sparring with these things on. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, I get, are these personal shields? Okay, maybe, but what are the rules of this universe? How does this work? Like, I don't understand any of it. It looks terrible. So it's confusing and it looks bad. Not great. Then, as far as cast and all that stuff, another, I guess, iconic scene, which I found actually kind of interesting, was Baron Harkonnen's intro. I'm just going to go with Harkonnen. I know this one calls it Harkonnen. It was, kind of a combination of like Dr. Pimple Popper mixed with some greasy, disgusting oil bath. And then he pulled the plug on this dude and blood starts spurting out of his heart. And I'm like, what is going on? Yet again, this is probably the 50th time in this movie I've asked this question. Now, the pulling the plug thing I found kind of interesting, and they do a really good job of making the Harkonnens vile and grotesque and despicable. So good job, I guess, on that. But again, I'm like, why is this giant guy like just floating around like he's Veruca Salt or whoever in Willy Wonka? I mean, it's just kind of crazy. So I covered a little bit of ground there with characters. Did you guys have anything you wanted to touch on with any of that stuff, or any of the character intros?
So, Greg, what did you watch first? Did you watch this or the part 1?
I watched this one, and I think that was a mistake.
Okay. Well, not really. I mean, you're only, if you watch this and you watch that, you're only going up. So, I mean,
yes. Yeah. I mean, it probably did blow me away more. Like part 1 blew me away more, seeing what humble roots it came from with this. But I was so confused by most of it. Whereas had I watched, I think, part 1 first, I like, they clearly explain stuff in that movie. So I would have a better idea of what's going on here.
So, all right. So did the shields eventually make sense? Like for the, like the big,
a little more, but a little more, but it doesn't,
right. Okay.
I'm still a little confused on like why like close range stuff works. And I don't know. Or not only certain close range things.
It's like slow, like a slow blade. They said like the slow blade or something can penetrate it. Yeah. Or I don't know. With the characters, like I know maybe like I don't even think I know Patrick Stewart, Sting, and the principal from Kindergarten Cop is in this movie. And Max von Sydow. That's it. Yeah. I don't even know I'm not even going to say the principal from Kindergarten Cop's name because I don't know it. So, but I knew her as that, and she was a lot younger. You knew
Kyle MacLachlan, right?
No, I mean, I know of him, but I feel like I've seen him and stuff. Like he was in Twin Peaks and all. Like I wasn't like a religious watcher of Twin Peaks, so like I know of his existence, and I feel like I've seen him in a few things. Like, but I don't know him as well as like any other like actor I would know today. Like from the 80s. Like I feel like he was definitely big during the 80s and 90s, and I know he worked with Lynch on a few things. So. But I haven't seen a lot of Lynch movies. I think this was one of the first, like, I think maybe I've seen like 3 or 4. This just happens to be one, like, unfortunately it has to be one of them. But like the names at the time, I'm sure they were like with the cast, they were probably bigger names, and they got Sting. They probably paid him a bunch of money to be in it. And like I think I think the chemistry, like if you watch movies now compared to like movies in the 80s and 90s, like I don't think movies have a lot of chemistry, like science fiction movies have a lot of chemistry with their cast in like early 70s or 80s. I think a lot of it's based on like special effects and they pick like big names, or just like it's a lot of bad acting. Like some of the worst acting I've seen is in sci-fi from like 70s and 80s. And that includes Star Wars. Like some of the acting in that is terrible. So I think like the 2021 has a lot like their cast has a lot better chemistry, but I like the intro to Harkonnen, whatever we said we're gonna call him, like the Baron, really odd. I liked it in the remake, but this was just I felt like the Harkonnens were like very jokey and like weird. Like I think how they were introduced, like they were a bunch of horn dogs is one thing. I feel like that's like very hinted at with Fade or Frey, I forget his name, Sting. I'm gonna call him Sting, and the Baron. There was like some like tension there, like, and it was really uncomfortable.
Which is his nephew, right?
Yeah, this is like they're like approaching. They're like going into Game of Thrones territory here, and I don't think like I think again this is the 80s, and I think that's kind of the best you can do. Like I think it was much darker and more mature in the remake in part one. But if the job was to make me feel uncomfortable watching as the villain, it did its job, because that guy's vile, and I still don't understand how he flies, if he has jetpacks on his shoes or if he just has magic or something. I don't know. It made me uncomfortable. So
thoughts on characters?
Yeah, I mean, I think you were hitting it with the Baron and the Harkonnens there, with like the way Lynch style is Lynch is definitely going to make you feel grossed out if you've ever seen Eraserhead, Mulholland Drive. There are definitely moments in both of those movies where you're creeped out, weirded out, and I think that's where he really excels in making you just feel uncomfortable. It felt like to me, like besides Patrick Stewart, like getting on almost riding a dog at some point in the battle, when he grabs the dog and he's just carrying it, and like, let's go to war. That was really funny to me. But besides that point, it doesn't seem like anybody's trying to have any fun in this movie, or like it seems like they all have the script and they're just reading their lines and we're moving on to the next scene. No, nobody really stood out. I mean, besides the Harkonnens, where they're just like, listen, just go wild, like let loose, do whatever you want, like laugh out loud, go the extra mile. And so like you definitely can tell the different styles, I guess, of the houses. And that's something else where it's like at least they didn't make it all like the same and they're all fighting for one purpose. There's some differences there, but for the most part it just feels like everybody's taking things too seriously, especially Kyle MacLachlan. He's just like stone faced throughout the whole thing, and it doesn't make any sense. Like as far like, I don't know, he seems like he knows he's the chosen one from the start of the movie, and it's like he just continues to like try to be that. But yeah, it felt a little wooden to me for that. So
I will say with Paul, like his introduction, like when they get into the Minecraft suits, when he's just kind of at his desk, and I'll agree with like Harry, like through most of the movie, like I feel like it's opposite from like Timothy Chalamet. Like he's like kind of in not denial, but like doubt, like self-doubt through a lot of whether or not he wants to do, like, and we'll get to that when we talk about that. But yeah, Harry's right off the bat. It's just like this kid is like, he's a 16-year-old kid who's just kind of like, well, I'm probably the chosen one, but like he just like kind of he's just like winging it, and he shouldn't be as like he's kind of happy in the beginning of the movie where he's just kind of like, yeah, it's probably me, blah 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 blah, and like I just kind of just and like isn't even trying. But then like there's a point, I think, once he gets to Dune, he just like becomes that like just very like stone faced and like no emotion. Yeah. And like those inner voices start, and it's just kind of like he delivers all of his dialogue with just he's like a statue. So yeah, I agree with Harry. His acting is very awkward. So yeah.
Speaking of the inner voices, how did you guys feel about that? Because I was not a fan. It's like, I get it, you want to have these inner monologues and get inside the character's head. What's he thinking? But it was almost a crutch that Lynch relied on it so much in the movie.
I hated them because I feel like there were times like you kind of know who's talking because they show whose face it is, but just like I don't need to know. Like it's definitely an aspect of taking a story from a book, because I'm sure there's inner dialogue from the book that they address, and it's like a weird style that I know, like Harry said with like Lynch, he kind of like has like his own style of filmmaking. And I don't think it fits here because there's two. Like, if you did one inner voice of like Paul, and I think that would work. But then you have I feel like every character at one point has like an inner voice line, and you don't need that. You don't like, and I just think it causes confusion. And I mean, like I watch with subtitles, so it actually has to say inner voice,
Yeah.
blah blah blah, but it doesn't say whose inner voice is saying it. So, but I mean, pretty much if they show you whoever's on camera, that's who's doing it. But it was very unneeded.
Mm-hmm.
So, Har.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, it's funny. Greg mentioned it earlier about how he watched this one before he watched Dune Part 1. And I watched it the opposite way. I watched Dune Part 1 first because I didn't want to be tainted going into my Dune Part 1 experience. So, but yeah, like the inner voice, I felt like to me was just a way that in Dune Part 1 where they were just kind of doing the like either flashbacks or flash forwards or dream sequences and having the inner voice, or doing the dark voice in a way as well. So I didn't really mind it too much, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if that was something where after it was shot, they were like, how can we put something in here that makes, the audience understand what he's thinking or what he could be thinking in this moment. And again, it's another thing like where it's just they're telling us instead of showing us, which was just upsetting throughout the whole thing, where it's like, okay, he's the Messiah. He's saying he's the Messiah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, I like it definitely has a purpose in like books and comic books, but like in a visual storytelling medium, or more visual, like movies, I feel like it's a crutch of like, I don't know, lazy writing or lazy direction. Like there's got to be a better way that you can have us see or feel what's going on through dialogue rather than just oh, this is the character, this is what he's thinking, like let me just say 5 lines and it's like my inner monologue. I don't know, it didn't work for me. So another scene I thought was interesting, and by interesting I mean super corny, was Paul lassoing the big one, the giant sandworm. The sandworms themselves were pretty cool, but I thought this scene was just, it was so cheesy, dude. And like, if I could describe this movie in one word, it would probably be cheese. But I was not a fan of this. And, like, I feel like it was meant to be, a very climactic point in the movie and, a turning point where, Paul has kind of gained mastery over his powers, and this is representative of that, and he's going to turn the tides using these sandworms, and it just was corny to me, played off really bad. Harry, what did you think about the scene?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you're describing, Greg. It's just, there's this big climax of like, hey, because I don't know if it was around this point, but I mean, it's funny when you watch both movies, how like the first hour and 30 minutes are almost the same. And then you look at the runtimes and you see, Dune 2021 is about 2.5 hours. And then the one in 84 was 2 hours and 17 minutes. And you're like, wow, we're like really on the same path here. How are they going to like crush this? And then, we'll get
so close and yet so far.
Yeah, we'll get into it shortly, how like the last half an hour to 45 minutes just runs. But yeah, this was real big cheese to me. I mean, he kind of like runs up to the side of it, and I'll be interested to see what they do in Dune Part 2 with it. But Yeah, it didn't really work for me. But like you said, I was kind of digging the worms and kind of the special effects of that and the practical effects of that up until that point. And then it was just like, you know, he hopped on it and was just kind of standing there like he was surfing. And then he's like, come on up, everybody, let's all have a ride. And then, you know, the majority of them are all just chilling there. And it's like, look, not that hard. So I guess it's just everybody's welcome once he's riding it, or I don't know how that works. So
Hands, before we get your take, if this was made in early 2000s, do we get CGI Legolas legs?
Oh my goodness, probably.
Or he's just like climbing the Oliphant.
Yeah, that's
No.
terrible. Yeah, I'm just gonna bounce off this sandworm thing. Like, it's so like I think like what the, like the special effects like did not help at all is when he's on top of the sandworm. It reminded me of the old timey cowboy thing where they're running on like a platform and they're just spinning like the background in constant spinning, because it's just like he's not moving, he's standing still, and it's just like he's clearly on a set. Now I know it's 1984, but he's clearly on like a set of rocks, like fake rocks, and you just see the background shaking like it's supposed to like imitate him moving. I thought how it was done was like it was a lot of cheese. That's a great way to put it, because all these people are now riding, like hundreds of people are riding sandworms. And I think the concept of that in itself is cheesy to have that in a movie. Now I'm interested to see what they do in part 2 if they include that, because I think they did a brief thing of it in part 1. But it just I don't think CGI was up to par to include a bunch of people riding sandworms. You know, I think the best version of sandworms that we got was in Beetlejuice that came out 4 years later than this and looks a million times better.
Fair shout. Where'd that budget money go, Lynch?
Yeah, that pays Sting. Pays Sting and Patrick Stewart. And the old lady from Kindergarten Cop.
Oh,
yes. Before we move on to just final thoughts on this, I guess, but the ending just felt super, super rushed. It was crazy. It's like you guys had alluded to earlier, but it just felt like that last act, I guess, the last third of the movie just flew by, and it's like one thing after another. And you know, Paul's sister, they just kind of glossed over that, and all of a sudden she's there and she's like grown, and it's like, what is going on? I don't know. And the next thing you know, he's off in space doing his thing, and boy, it was just a lot to throw in a short time. And that was another thing too, was like I noted this in my Letterboxd review, but like it felt like with this movie there were like random intervals of time just missing, like they just sped up. And that's okay to do in a movie, but like they do it without warning, or like very little warning, and it's just like, oh, here we are, this is like 5 years later, and boom boom boom, like bang bang bang, and then here it is, it's another year later. So I don't know, I wasn't a fan of that. It's an already confusing movie and premise, and then all of a sudden there's even more added to it by just these random time skips. Harry, what did you think about the ending?
Yeah, I mean, they're really running for the last 45 minutes, like just like you said, jumping from talking with the Emperor to talking, you know, back at Harkonnen, like just being back there and celebrating, to then his sister's born and she grows rapidly. There's apparently a 2-year war between the Harkonnens and the Freemen, like where they're just kind of fighting, which they gloss over and just kind of say this has been going on for 2 years. And it's like, okay. So that was interesting as well. Again, it's just a lot of telling, not a lot of just like, you know, letting your story develop, or, you know, it seems like, again, this probably was, you know, fell prey to, we got to wrap this story up. How are we wrapping it up? And it's like, it's got to be 2 hours, you know, not 2 hours. Okay. 2:15 max. So yeah, it just really runs to the finish line. Doesn't really do it justice. There's like, I remember I paused it with like 10 minutes left and they're getting to the final fight. And it's like, we're doing this in the last 10, like credits are going to be 5 of these minutes. And it's like, so we got 5 minutes to wrap this up. And it just kind of ends with him telling him, you know, and talking about what he is and how he is the Messiah. And it's like, we're good. And credits. And it's like, wow, okay, we're here. All right. You really pushed through it. So yeah, pretty terrible. So in that case, so hence.
Yeah. So I think it kind of this movie, it's the book itself is like maybe 600 pages, I think, like 650. And you're taking I think like to take all that movie and cram it into a 2-hour movie is like almost like if you take out the 10-minute intro and like the 5-10 minutes for credits, like you got 2 hours. And there's a lot, like I think they did a good job at keeping with like at least the first maybe half. Like if we're gonna use Dune the part 1 to comparison, they get to that part and then it's just like they put the pedal to the metal and they're going like a million miles an hour and they're just like a million. Like I forgot, yeah, you're right. I forgot about his sister. And at any point did they say like 5 years later or 2 years later or anything, or did they just
at some point say that we're at war for 2 years and like
so they
talk
used
about
dialogue.
the
They didn't
sister's
put it on the
rapid
screen.
growth. No, they just. I mean, if
They
you had
just-
subtitles on, you could read it, but yeah.
Okay, so I missed it. So I missed that part
Yeah.
where they said, yes, this is time has passed, because just then like
Time has
Paul's
passed.
talking about training people and like I'm gonna take 100 people, then they're gonna train it. I'm like, oh my god, like what is happening? And then at one point, like they're riding sandworms, and then it's just like then they meet up with the Baron and he does like a bunch of spins and dies. Spoiler, and it was unnecessary. Like they should have broke this up into 2 movies, just but you know, I think a lot of this might have been a kind of movie where like the studio at the time was probably trying to catch up to Star Wars. And you know, at that point, Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever
it.
existed.
They were trying to just tell 10
exactly
movies in one movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're trying to take all this content and just blop it together. And then, you know, they were already far behind. Like what studio produced this? I didn't even check. What rando studio produced Dune in 1984? I'm gonna look it up.
Sure.
It certainly wasn't Warner Brothers or someone.
But you know, while you're on that note, I mean, I don't understand why they couldn't just go the Star Wars route and take like a section of the story and just make that the best that you can possibly make it. Like, if you got to break it up into 2 movies, so be it. But like to try and cram all of this in, it messes with the flow of the movie and it does itself a disservice. I don't know.
Yeah, they're just a lot. Like I think they do it. Like I don't want to say they do a great job, but they do an okay job of getting to the point where after House Atreides falls, and I think they do it. And you know, I think once him and his mom are like, I guess, banned or whatever, they're supposed to die in the desert. I think it's good, but then what I think that last 45 minutes is just it just does not. It just. Like there's not I think they gave up on story, and whether or not that was like a studio decision or if that was a Lynch decision, because I read I read a lot of stuff that like Harry had mentioned earlier, is that Lynch hated this movie and he said like production of it was hell. So I can imagine he was probably just like, you know what, I just want to finish this. Like I'm gonna like I'm probably gonna lose my mind if I put any more focus on Dune. So yeah, unnecessary.
So maybe some of that budget went to Africa because they did the score, the band Africa, not the country or the continent, I should say. Look, I'm a fan, or Toto. I'm sorry, the band Toto, who had the hit song Africa, which is also a continent. Yeah. Dude, Dune has me so messed up. Like I'm all tripping out on spice over here.
You're in the universe.
Yes. So anyway, Toto does the score for the OG Dune. And, you know, I'm a fan of the song Africa. I love, you know, Hold the Line, both great songs. I don't see potential in them doing a score, and I don't think it served this movie well. It just gave it a really low budget feel. Their score, I don't know. I wasn't a fan. Hair.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it had the score kind of had its moments. You know, in the beginning, I felt like it was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But again, it's just something where it's like it just didn't really work it in at any point and like make it a part of the movie. I mean, we'll obviously talk about Dune Part 1 and my boy Hans, just straight killing it per usual. And killing your eardrums. I'll probably be deaf in 5 years. But it's it was a little bit of a letdown when you see, Toto and I know Brian, I think Brian Eno or Brian, I forget what the producer kind of guy's name is, but he's done a lot of things with U2 and Coldplay throughout the years of helping produce some of their albums. So it was a little bit of a letdown that happened, or that didn't hit as well as it should have been a hit. Maybe they just should have played Africa the whole time and brought the rains down, especially at the end. Come on, imagine it. Like, oh
100%,
man,
I would have been into that.
Yeah, could have just
take me on
just
that
throw it
ride
in there. Yeah, you're already paying them.
Hans, what did you think of Toto here?
Whatever. I actually had to double take it because and they were like the big name in the 80s. So like when Africa came out, so I'm sure they're like, all right, let's get them. But the score was a little silly at points. I think the music was very odd choice. But I had to do a double take in the opening credits when it said or score by Toto, and I'm like, wait, what? And I like zoom back. I'm like, oh, yep, that's Toto. So
it's
cool.
It's wild because Sting's in the movie. He plays a fairly big character, but it's not like he has a ton going on in the movie. So you would think they'd work out some kind of deal where it's like, here, you can do the score also, and we'll give you this big part. But no, he had no parts to do with the score, to my knowledge.
Nope.
Zero.
No.
Zilch.
No, they just he probably had to sit back and watch Toto destroy it.
Couple other thoughts here. I know Kyle MacLachlan is Lynch's boy, but he didn't feel right as the lead actor or the lead role, Paul Atreides. You guys had kind of mentioned it earlier with him vacillating between, I guess, accepting that he's the Messiah and hey, I'm happy-go-lucky, and then after that he's just stone-faced, no emotion McLaughlin. I don't know. I don't know who I would have cast in this role instead. I didn't go that far into it or think that deep about it, but I know it wouldn't be him. So Hans, what are your thoughts on Kyle?
I did do and one thing, whenever we watch like some of these movies, I like to go, especially train wrecks like this, I like to go and do like IMDb trivia. Apparently Rob Lowe turned down the role for Paul.
Really?
And then it went to Kyle MacLachlan. Yeah. So
That'd
it could have been
kind
worse.
of a spicy fit there. I could see that.
Yeah, I guess. Rob Lowe's all right. He's probably better than Kyle MacLachlan. To be honest, he's probably better than Kyle MacLachlan. I don't think he fit in this. He was probably like the popular, like, good looking guy at the time. They're like, all right, well, let's grab him. He's like, a young guy in his early 20s. He's probably going to be like, I don't know who heartthrobs if they exist in the 80s, but they're probably just like, oh, let's get him. He's a good looking face, and so.
There's been heartthrobs ever since medieval times, my friend.
I know. Just none that look like Kyle MacLachlan.
No, that's accurate. Harry, what are your thoughts on the casting here?
Yeah, I mean, I just think he looks almost as old as his dad, in a way. Like, there's like, if he just had a beard, you probably would have been like, okay, like they're probably the same age as what was the character's name? Leto? Yeah, Leto,
Leto.
Right? Yeah, Leto.
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 Or Leto, whatever. Depends whatever version you're watching, if they want to pronounce it.
Yeah,
right.
I guess. Yeah.
First name Jared.
Yeah, I will say, watching a movie, watching Dune Part 1 and then watching this and then hearing some of the terminology, you're like, wait, what? And then, you're realizing translations and just what they're doing. And, you can get down a dark rabbit hole there with trying to figure out what, everything means and dialogue and stuff, especially watching them back to back. Yeah, Rob Lowe probably would have been an interesting choice. I think he probably had a more younger vibe even around then, because I think that was around the same time as St. Elmo's Fire. So maybe, would have felt a little more high school, I guess, with that, because I feel like Rob Lowe's one of those people who just looks the same age even now as he did then. Kudos to him and whatever, diet and stuff he's doing. But yeah, just not a good fit for sure. Just didn't feel right. Felt just awkward. Again, felt like a play where you're watching it and it's just like he's just reading his lines and we're moving on to the next thing. There's no passion in there for it.
Yeah. I will say on a positive note, because there hasn't been a lot for this movie for me. I found the political intrigue in the movie. The fact that there was any period was surprising and somewhat enjoyable. You know, it did make the story a little more interesting. I going into this, I was going into Dune cold turkey because all I knew was the name Paul Atreides, sandworms, and spice. I didn't know anything else about the movie. So or seeing that there's a subplot of, you know, all of this stuff going on and backstabbing from the emperor and everything was pretty interesting. But to summarize my final thoughts, I'm actually going to read a Letterboxd review that I found because I think this is hilarious and it perfectly describes my thoughts on it. Although this is not from me, this is from user Patrick on Letterboxd. Felt like I showed up 2 hours before the final exam for a class I never attended and tried to skim through the entire textbook. I failed the exam, but at least the textbook had a bunch of cool pictures. So, Patrick, I don't know if you're out there listening. I'm sure you are, because who isn't? Everybody's listening to us. But kudos on the excellent review, buddy. Stellar work.
Yeah.
I gave this movie a 1.5 out of 5. I mean, look, there were a few things in there that I found vaguely interesting, but the execution was just so bad on everything. And I honestly don't ever see myself revisiting this unless it's an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000, which I would absolutely love. This is a perfect movie for that. But I think because of it being so well known, I'm sure the rights are probably expensive to get it on the show. Yeah. But beyond that, I was not a fan of Dune 84. Final thoughts, Hans?
The only reason I would probably rewatch this and just to bring this full circle with the old lady from Kindergarten Cop, I would only watch this as if we were to do any kind of like drinking game of if they ever said like any kind of like Maldive or whatever, however they pronounce it, or spice or something. For the people listening that weren't aware, if you have some fun drinking games with Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, Kindergarten Cop's a perfect one.
Absolutely.
So that's the only time I'd rewatch this. Never again. I honestly have no desire. I don't care if Catherine's kind of like, you know what, I want to go and watch some old science fiction movies. We're gonna watch Dune 1984. Like, it's all on you. That's
what reality is that in? Wow,
that's an interesting. That's some kind of alternate, like Loki reality going on.
Out of 5, what would you score it?
1.
Nice.
I'm being very nice. I'm one. I think the effects were kind of cool. I understand what they were trying to do, and I think Universal actually distributed this. So I think I understand what they were trying to do, and I guess I applaud their attempts, but it just kind of no. Like, it gets a 1. It's lucky it didn't get a 0. I didn't letterbox it, but I'm gonna do it right now.
Nice. Har, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I gave it a 2 stars, mainly because I think sometimes a movie has to be really bad, and this had at least, like, I felt watching, and Greg, it's so interesting because I feel like if you were to watch Dune Part 1 and then watch this, you would have saw they were doing a good job, or at least of trying to explain things. But yeah, going in blind and being like, I'm going to watch this before I watch the new Dune, you're just going to feel lost. You're going to feel like you're showing up to the test and you
set myself up for failure.
But yeah, I mean, otherwise there's some, you know, like we talked about, cool costumes, some cool practical effects, you know, but just it kind of falls apart and it's not very well written given all things considered. And, you know, I wouldn't call myself a David Lynch fan because I struggle with his films, which I think a lot of people do. But, you know, at least, you know, what you can say with his other films is he's at least trying things, or he's making you feel things, whether you hate it or love it. And that's kind of the point. With this, it's just, I feel as though too many hands got into the pot and, you know, kind of ruined it for him, which is a shame. So.
All right. Well, that is our Dune 84 review. So we're going to move on to Dune Part 1, aka Dune 2021. So 37 years later, Hans, how do we fare?
Oh boy. Just so what I'm gonna do going forward is just like this is all I'm gonna just say the original. So when I say the original, it's 1984 to avoid any further confusion. So this was my most anticipated movie probably since they announced it a couple years ago.
It's 2020.
Yeah, it was a long time. I feel like this movie was supposed to come out like 2 years ago, to be honest. Yeah. I know it got some delays because of COVID, and it was definitely like every time they pushed it back or they kind of said it was gonna be delayed, it was really sad. I got really excited when Denise said this is the date, we're releasing it. Bam. So I went to see this the day it came out in Dolby, which there's a lot of movie snobs out there, and they're saying you have to watch this movie in the best kind of format, whatever. You really don't.
That's like, me. I would say that.
I understand. Like there are like
HBO Max.
I honestly like watching. I feel like there's a lot of movies out there that like you have to kind of. And I guess in a sense agree with that, but I wouldn't say like if I watch this on HBO and like on like a regular TV, I think I'd still enjoy it. I just think you get a little extra from like the Dolby or IMAX experience, Wow. But I was happy that I did see it in Dolby. I think I might have rather have seen it in IMAX. I think the sound was a little goofy in Dolby, but whatever. I think the cast I can name, unlike the original, I can name 90% of the cast in this movie. They were, whether that's a sign of the times, I don't know, but
probably.
I think, you have Timothy Chalamet. This movie covers from the original, maybe, as we said, like the first hour and a half or so of the 1984 version. Yeah. And it covers like a small part of the book, maybe the first half of the book. So it leaves you with that, Lord of the Rings type ending where there's more, and they're gonna eventually do a part 2, which comes out in 2 years. Same characters are pretty much in it. I think the only one that's not in it is Sting's character is not in the remake, but I think they might have given his character to Batista. I think they might have remade Batista's character as the Beast, like, or whatever his name was. Kind of. I think unless they just never gave Batista an actual name, I think he's just known as the Beast. But he might be Sting's. I don't know. Unless they confirm that in part 2. I'm not sure.
They called Batista's character the Beast Raban, and Raban was like the one nephew from the first one.
Yeah, I wonder if Sting's character is going to show up in the next one.
He might, yeah.
Judging by the way, I feel like if you try to compare them, I feel like Sting's character could easily be, put into this one as like, here we're introducing him and he's going to be a rival or something at some point. So
right. I'm only going to be happy if they actually cast Sting to be in that role. Ooh, so that nice. But my personal opinion with this, as I said, it was my most anticipated. It's probably my favorite movie that I've seen this year. It lived up to like my very, very high expectations I had from it. Going from the cast, the movie is beautiful. Like it really is. Like I think seeing it. And Greg, did you watch it HBO Max or in the theater?
HBO Max.
Okay.
Scumbag.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Well, all right then. Sorry.
On my 4K 75-inch TV with 7 surround sound. So yeah. I mean, it's not like I'm schlepping it.
Yeah, I watched it on my computer.
Humble brag from Greg over here.
I know, right? Oh, sorry.
I got a new chair for everybody to see, and I got my big TV. Sorry. Check me out.
Shout out Secret Lab.
Yeah, I'm gonna go watch it again on my 28-inch tube.
Put it on my iPod the way Denny intended.
Yeah. So I think it's a very I feel like even though they do a lot of shot for shot kind of remake, like shot for shot remakes into the new version too. And some of the lines are pretty some of the scenes are ripped directly from the original. I think this is fleshed out a lot better in the one in 2021 in part 1. I think you get much better performances from the cast all around. You get Jason Momoa, who I'm not a huge fan of outside of, I don't know, like really anything. I think he's I hate him as Aquaman, but that's a story for another day. Yeah, my man. We didn't get that. We got. I feel like he was kind of broy in this, but not enough. Not like he didn't overdo it. But I thought he was fantastic in as Duncan, Idaho, which is probably my new favorite name in, even though it came from a book, my new favorite name in movie history. That's so like, it gives you that sense of, this was at one point, these are all humans and they were all on Earth, to name someone Duncan, Idaho.
And his cousin, Sam, Wisconsin.
I can't wait till Chris has got to go to Chipotle next time, and he puts on his order Duncan, Idaho, and they write it on the bowl for him.
I might,
Mr. Idaho.
I might do that now. It dives a lot more into, it focuses a lot more on the story outside of what the original did. I think the original rushed a lot. And this is doing the smart thing by taking its time. Now, I think majority of people knew there was going to be a part 2. So they weren't going to cram 600 pages into this, which I'm glad they did. Denis is one of my favorite directors. So I'm glad he did this. I think he did fantastic work with Blade Runner. Even a couple of the set pieces, I think he stole from Blade Runner and popped them in this. But yeah, I can go on like pretty much. I could start like my own episode of just this and talking about how it looked.
And ready for 2 hours with Dune.
Yeah, Dune cast coming soon.
This
is my Dune. This is my desert.
Just a shot by shot like analyzation. But you
have to wear all moisture wicking clothes too.
and a big plot. Like I'm gonna wear the old 1984 box as my shield.
Yeah,
just get some cardboard. That's a good Halloween outfit. Next year.
Yeah, I'm sure all the kids will be able to say what that is.
Are you Roblox? Are you Minecraft? What are you, pal?
But I think there's some good comparisons but I think that what the part 1 does really good is kind of makes it a little more serious in tone. I think the 1984 was in that time. Probably a lot of acid might have been done during the 1984 one where, Denis seems like a little more head on his shoulders to kind of not go that route.
A lot
There's
of
that budget Lynch.
Yeah.
A lot of drugs taken on Gideon Prime and just like messing with people and with the Harkonnens and the Baron. Just having a good time.
I feel like Legendary and Warner Brothers was a lot more comfortable giving him like $100 million, however much this costs, than Universal did handing money over to David Lynch. So, I'm a little happier there. But yeah, I mean, we're going to jump into a bunch of other stuff. What do you guys, Greg, what was your like kind of initial reaction going in?
I mean, I was excited, but I guess hesitant. Let me articulate here. I was excited because it was a Denis movie, and he has not let me down yet. And big shout out to you guys for kind of lighting that fire for me to go see his movies.
Got you, brother.
Catch up.
Come here. Everybody comes here for good movies.
Yes, that's right. But that said, I wasn't excited for Dune, the property, and even more so after I saw the 84 version. But I had faith that it was in the hands of an auteur, which it was, and it turned out amazing. It was a great movie. Lots of good stuff in it. I liked right away the opening, and they're explaining why the Fremen, protect the spice and what the spice does and all this stuff, where it was enough to satisfy the knowledge that I needed without like blowing my head up in a million pieces. Hans, you mentioned it was beautifully shot. Totally agree with you. I think the movie was absolutely gorgeous. The score, ethereal and really well done from Hans Zimmer. With Zimmer, he's kind of like the go-to guy for superhero movies nowadays, whereas I guess before that was maybe Danny Elfman or John Williams. And even though Zimmer is great, he's one of the top modern day composers, I feel like he kind of has a lane and sticks with it most times. And in this movie, he did not. He strayed from his lane, and it was even all the better for it. Like, it was just so different than his normal work, and I loved it. I thought it was really, really gorgeous. So yeah, I mean, those are my initial thoughts, I guess. Har?
Yeah, I mean, just going off your Hans Zimmer point really quick, I know he passed up to work with his boy Nolan to be able to do this movie. So I think it was Tenet that would have been what he was probably shooting and doing during that time. So, like I said earlier, Hans Zimmer, keep it up, baby. You're killing it. Like, keep doing your thing, keep growing, keep making those sounds that go bong and blow out my eardrums and make me have to be like, I gotta watch this on my TV with subtitles because I can't hear what the dialogue's going. Absolutely love it. So engrossing. Yeah, so I didn't see this in Dolby. I didn't see it on my TV. I went to see it in IMAX because it was shot in IMAX. So I went full movie snob on it. Saw it alone because couldn't work out time with friends or family. So solo guy going to a movie on a Friday night. Felt weird. Felt weird going to a movie theater at 5:30 on a Friday night and not having to clock in to start a shift and just looking around and being like, so this is what it's like on the other side.
Wonderful feeling.
Yeah. But yeah, we talked a little bit about expectations. My expectations weren't that high. I was excited for it. If you probably made me make a short list, it probably would have been up there in the top 5 or top 10, depending on, but I felt like the trailer had kind of worn out its welcome. Maybe that was because I was seeing movies that were just like, hey, we only have 6 trailers to show because we know what movies are coming out. And here it is every single time for an IMAX movie. Then they had the second trailer, which came out, which kind of hinted that there was going to be more to the story and that this wasn't the only part to it. And I think that came late in the marketing. So I think for a while, people thought, wow, they're really going to try to do this, like, and tell the story of Dune. And then, as soon as you sit down to watch it, it says part 1. So I think they did a really good job of kind of setting expectations, but then also, kind of going, I don't even want to say like Lord of the Rings, but kind of going in that route of like, hey, we got a larger story to tell here and we're going to do our job and tell it, unlike the 84 version. But yeah, man, wow. Watching this movie, especially, I wrote it down here, especially the first hour and a half to hour 45, even 2 hours, if you want to go that far, were just incredible. It made me question why Star Wars isn't making these movies every 2 to 3 years. Like, it doesn't seem like Denny makes it seem so seamless and easy that it's like, how did you guys screw this up? How did you drop the ball? And now Dune's here. And it's like, I'm more excited for the next Dune than I am for the next Star Wars movie that might get announced. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think they're picking up, they're being carried, to take a football term, like Derrick Henry with Mandalorian, carrying him all the way, but now Derrick Henry's hurt. So sorry, Derrick. Get well soon. But yeah, I mean, I really love the Baron. Arriving on Arrakis was really cool. The first worm scene when they go with the rescue, I mean, that's why you go to the movie theater to go see a movie. That's why you try to see an IMAX or Dolby. Like that scene right there, the sound pumping in, the big screen format.
Don't you theater shame me?
Listen, I will. You're gonna miss it because Eternals is gonna be out. You're gonna have to wait for that re-release. When there's nothing coming out. But yeah, absolutely just took my, I don't want to say took my breath away, but like just blew me away with how good the movie was during the first 2 hours of just making me be like, this is top tier. This is why you go to the movies. This is why we have movies, to feel this, to be put into a world that we don't know. I think I talked about it before, but when I went to go see the first Lord of the Rings movie, The Fellowship, I absolutely did not want to watch it. It was out the same year as Harry Potter, and I wanted to go see that, but Harry Potter was sold out. My parents were like, we'll go see Lord of the Rings. And I said, that sounds awful. I don't know what this is. And my, oh my, how pleasantly surprised I was and how much I loved Lord of the Rings. And I had similar vibes to that with Dune. And it's good to know that at the age of 33, you can still get that feeling. I'm almost kind of getting choked up talking about it.
Ripe old age.
but getting that feeling of just like you're being transported, you're being told a story, you're being put in a world that you don't know, and here it is. So yeah, those are my kind of initial thoughts with it. But yeah.
Hey, real quick, you mentioned the Baron and his introduction, how he looked and all that stuff. Major props to the makeup, because Skarsgård was like unrecognizable for me. Like I didn't even, when I think I might have missed his name in the credits, or maybe I saw it and I was like, oh, whatever. But when I saw him, I was like, is is that him? Like, I had to look it up because the makeup is so well done in it. And even his accent, is fairly hidden. So they did a really good job there with him.
Yeah, I remember like seeing when they released like the full cast list and seeing him on it, but I forgot because they didn't really show it. I mean, I think they showed him in the credits or the trailer, maybe like a scene or two, but nothing like big. And then when I saw him, I saw his name on the credits, the opening credits, and I was like, oh wait, he's in this. And then I saw him as the Baron. I'm like, I had to like squint. I'm like, is that him? Like, Jesus. But he looked great. Like, he looked a lot better than the pimple guy. Yeah. He still floats for, I don't know why. I don't know if that's the spices doing it to him. I hope
he's
that's
got a
explained
long,
at some point.
flowy black dress now, though.
Yeah, I gotta read the book. I gotta go back and read the book because it probably explains like why this guy can just fly like he's Superman, and he doesn't really like fly. He just goes up and just does a little like he looks like a ghost. He looks like a ghost in the Haunted Mansion. But it just I like his character a lot more in this one. He still does the same goofy stuff. It's less horn doggish. I don't think he's trying to hook up with Batista, which is good so far. Yeah,
sure.
They still got part 2. Sting hasn't been introduced yet. So, but yeah, I one of the things I like with the Harkonnens, I think Batista needed a lot more kind of. I don't want to say screen time because I think they're saving him. I would love to see him and Momoa go at it in the sequel. Like have like maybe like a one-on-one or him, Batista and what's his name? I always forget his name. Brolin.
Gurney.
Josh Brolin.
Gurney. Yeah. To have him like I think they would have like a pretty cool fight, but we'll see where they go. But I God knows at this point. They still have like 400 more pages to tell.
Yeah. Two quick points to yours. Number one, totally agree with Batista. I think it rubbed me a little wrong that he had so few lines because I just recently did a rewatch of the Daniel Craig Bonds and Inspector. He literally has one line. And so it's like, dude, if you're going to cast somebody, and I get what they were trying to do in Inspector. They were trying to evoke Jaws, who also classic Bond villain, never talked. But like, if you're going to cast somebody, like, give them some meat to work with, like, don't just toss them like 6 lines or whatever. And that's it. The only thing I'm hoping for is maybe he gets a more expanded role in part 2. And that's why we didn't see too much of him here. In Denny, I trust. And the other thing is I actually prefer Patrick Stewart's Gurney to Josh Brolin's. Brolin is like the one sore spot for me in this movie because he just comes off as one note. He's angry. Like, he's angry all the time. Patrick Stewart had a little more depth in his portrayal of it. And, that's not necessarily on the actor. It's on the script. But yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of Dune Part 1's Gurney.
Yeah, I think with that, on that note, like it's 2 different movies. There's still the same scenes, but excuse me, I think it's definitely different because like that's a very 1984, as we said, is like very jokey and very hokey and cheesy. And I think in Dune, in this one, I don't think anyone smiles. I think Duncan does, maybe, and I think Paul does when he sees Duncan. So Duncan's responsible for like 2 laughs. And that's the 2 laughs in the movie. But I think it's just the tone they were going at to make him a little more like, to make him kind of that like straight faced and, but I think like in this type of movie, I think he was perfect for that role. I like him. And I don't think you see his character die in this. So I'm hoping they still keep him around. They don't like write him off. Same with Momoa too. I know they show they show him die, but it's science fiction. They'd pop him with some spice. He'll be all right.
I was gonna say, I assumed he was dead. He looked pretty dead to me, but
yeah,
but I don't remember. Did he pop back up in the 1984 one? Like, did he die in the 84 one? Did they show that?
They kind of gloss over that.
I'll be honest, I don't even remember that character from the
He was
84 version.
he was in it. He was in it because they did the same one where they said hi, and he's like, "I'm going to Dune a little early," and then they go to Dune, see him, and that's the last time I remember him being in this movie.
He shows up in the
84.
invasion in the 84 version, but I think he shows up and like he like lets Paul get away or something, and then I think he ends up getting like killed or something. So,
all right.
Yeah,
Like
so
I like
cool.
how they are including him as part of the Fremen, and he had like an in and knows a lot more. So I'm really hoping they bring him back. From what I've seen online, like his character's been positive, like has been getting positive receptions, and they killed off half of this cast, like the main cast in this movie. They're done, so they got to like bring a lot of people in. And why would you get rid of? I think 60% of their main cast is dead. So
consequences, baby.
Yeah,
good.
We're this ain't no Marvel movie. We're not keeping people around to fight the other villains.
That's true, but like you got rid of like your money makers like Oscar Isaac, Momoa.
Hey, listen,
who else?
They haven't introduced the Sting character. They haven't introduced the Emperor. They got plenty of time to cast more established actors.
We just got to meet Zendaya.
They're gonna They're gonna cast Chris Pratt as the Emperor.
Oh God! Don't you dare!
Yeah, she's gonna do the
put
voice
that on
of
us,
it.
Ricky Bobby.
he's gonna do the voice of a sandworm.
But it felt very Ned Stark-ish / Game of Thrones to me with that, where it's like you cast Sean Bean as your main character in season 1. He's gone. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen Game of Thrones. Where it's like, where do we go from here? So I hear what you're saying with that, but I think stay true to the plan and stay true to the books, and I assume they're probably dead. But going back to Momoa, I really loved him and Rebecca Ferguson in this movie. I felt like they were the two who had, I don't know if it's more just emotional moments in the movie, but where you could kind of tell that they were not just trying to be brooding or to be angry or to just kind of be. Like, as much as I love Oscar Isaac in this movie, he is kind of just a one note kind of honest, again, going back to the Ned Stark comparison where he's like a good guy, but like, this isn't your story, dude. And you kind of birthed the Messiah. You aren't, chosen to do anything. So, but yeah, so that's how I feel about the characters. But I felt Momoa and Rebecca Ferguson, like, you keep giving them, well, not Momoa, because sorry, Chris, he's gone, I think. But it'd be interesting to see if Josh Brolin gets to do more. Zendaya, as we mentioned, who the Emperor is going to be, if they'll introduce another Harkonnen or Harkonnen. And I think they have enough to fill in the cast a little bit more with the actors who they have to kind of take some of that screen time for sure.
You probably introduce some new Fremen also.
Yeah, for sure.
Now they'll bring Momoa back.
Well, I mean,
this coming from someone who isn't. I don't ever want to see Momoa in another movie again, other than Dune 2.
Somebody didn't watch. Well, no,
Jason, if you're out there listening, and we know you are, we're sorry.
Yeah,
his comments did not reflect the rest of the cast.
Yeah, I would agree.
Also, I want to jump back on that Batista thing. With some of his, like, how they sometimes they give him a lot, like not as much dialogue as in, like, if he wasn't the lead character. Denis did that in Blade Runner 2049 with he had the opening scene as Batista was in it. It's probably my favorite scene in the entire movie. They give him a lot of really cool dialogue. But then, like typical movie fashion, they just, Greg, did you see Blade Runner 2049?
I did not, but spoil away.
He doesn't make it past the first 10-15 minutes.
Get out of here, really.
He's on it.
He's really good in the scene. It's a really good scene.
He's phenomenal in the scene. So I recommend. I mean, I definitely recommend. He's not like a major character, but I definitely recommend watching. Like, Blade Runner 2049 is probably my second favorite Denis movie behind Blade Runner.
Crazy.
Or behind Dune. I'm sorry.
Sicario all day.
Sicario, dude. I honestly I feel like every week it changes because it's like it could be Sicario, it could be like Arrival.
Depending on which one you watched last.
Arrival is pretty amazing.
I can't give any of his movies under a 9. Like, I think maybe his earlier ones, like maybe I like Prisoners or Enemy. Enemy I might give an 8, 7 or an 8, but everything else is up there.
Who had Denny in their directors top 5 when we were doing that? Who was that? Was that
don't remember
me? Was that me? Believe it was me. So riding for Denny all day.
I would still say his resume is short, but he's
Dune didn't
making
come
a
out
case
yet.
to be in there.
I will say this. I will say this. After this movie, I feel like whatever Denny wants, if you're a studio, if you're Warner Brothers and Denny's like, I got Christopher Nolan type ideas, like, here's the check, my guy. I think this is definitely, I think the box office success still needs to come through, but I feel like this is another level for him to hit, that he can handle a project like this.
It's fair. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No arguments there.
What do you guys think about the sandworm design compared to the Beetlejuice 1980s version?
The Beetlejuice.
I mean, I like the sandworm. I thought it was pretty cool. I wouldn't go so far as to say it was anything like revolutionary or anything like that, but it looked really good. It did its job.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see if they have to do stuff in the daylight with it. I mean, I know they kind of do show it a little bit, but like more like true daylight and how the special effects will look. Because there's that big scene when they're running across the sand at night. But yeah, I really liked it. I mean, it's definitely obviously a huge improvement from the 84 version. And like I said, that first worm scene with the rescue, when they're in the flying, I guess, bug helicopters, that's why you go to the movies. That's why you see it on the biggest screen possible for scenes like that.
Mm-hmm.
For it.
Yeah. Also, we didn't get any inner voices. I think a lot of his dreams were like taking place of the inner voices that he was having of Zendaya and a couple of the other Fremen. I don't think they weren't really needed in this. I think they did a good job kind of explaining what's going on in his head. He'll either just say it or,
I really liked the dream that he had where it was when they were in the tent. And he was like, oh, like I keep hearing my name, and it's at the center of this giant religious war, and all this stuff is going on, and it's in that moment that he shows like he's really hesitant to be the Messiah. Like, he doesn't kind of want it, because if it's going to lead to this universal war, why would you want to be at the center of that? So that was pretty cool that they had that. And if that's taking the place of the inner voice, then so be it. Give me the dreams.
Yeah. And the one thing that I like, that I point out on my notes, is the only thing I saw in Dolby, like I felt like the sound was like really kind of off in Dolby, and it like I couldn't hear like that whole scene where he's saying like, I like there's a war in my name, and he was just kind of like saying stuff about fear, and I couldn't really hear it. And it like I want to go back and watch it with subtitles, but it was kind of like him like freaking out. But I think that was the only downside I saw of watching the movie. I don't know whether or not it's because I decided Dolby instead of IMAX, but
no, I would say during times for me there was trouble where, like, I mean, especially when that Zimmer score gets going or there's multiple sound mixing. I mean, that's like kind of like a Nolan staple of like, what is he saying? What's happening? So yeah, I would definitely say that probably wasn't just you, Chris. I think a lot of people would probably say, I'm putting this on HBO Max and figuring out what the scene actually was saying.
It reminded me of like Inception, where like the last like maybe 15 minutes of Inception when they're in the dream, it's like that Zimmer horn is like,
or McConaughey's in the bookshelf and he's kind of muffled. Yeah,
like they're like in that snow area, like the fourth level of the dream, and they're like, all you hear is like mumbling is.
Love it. Give it to me every time.
Speaking of voices, though, I do prefer the sound of the voice when they do the voice in this one. I think it was mixed like so much better.
Oh, yeah.
The 84 version is just, I mean, it's them talking in a deeper voice, and this it's actually mixed, like there's like multiple layers to it. So I thought that was really well done.
Yeah. No, that Zimmer score though, man, that blows you away in a theater.
100%. So I was just gonna say as a final point for me, the Star Darker, the army of the Emperor. Is that what it's called?
Sardaukar, I think it's
Sardaukar, whatever you want.
Yeah,
whatever you want.
The Skarsgård.
We want to do.
Skarsgård.
Yeah. So the Skarsgård army. Those are some intense dudes, and what I really enjoyed about the scene with them when they come in the first time during the invasion, but especially the second time when they find Paul again, when him and his mom are going across the desert, the way they drop in and they just kind of airdrop and there's no sound for that. Like it could have been easy to just be like, let's give them a little sound, or like that people know they're coming, or they hear it, and that like just to make it so it's just like perfect silence as they come in. Like it's
bro,
so
they're doing
intense,
Black Ops style.
Oh, dude, absolutely amazing. 100% behind it. That was my thoughts on one of my final thoughts on that to get it in.
My only final thought I have is just it kind of goes back to the cast. One guy I'd call it. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. David Dastmalchian or whatever. That dude.
Malkian. Yeah,
sure. That
Polka
dude,
dot,
he
man.
should his name should be in Dune. He
Polka dot, man, that's right.
dude, that dude kills it.
He's killing it
He
this
is
year.
in everything. I feel like he's been every major IP, pretty much like he just shows up. So a lot of props go to him. Timothy Chalamet, a lot better than Kyle MacLachlan. That dude, they went with the right name here. I don't know who else they had cast it. And Harry, I know you're going to appreciate this. The one lady from season 2 of Broadchurch is in this movie that I didn't know. Which we just
you
finished.
know her name?
Charlotte something. Rambling.
Yeah, there you go. She's actually like a big actress. So she's been in many of other things. Yeah, but cool. She's great. That's great. Loved her as the Reverend Mother Mohayam.
Yeah, I hope she pops up. I think I'm terrifying. I'm only riding her because of Broadchurch, but we just finished.
Well, I mean, to each their own. We all find actors in different ways, but she was in a movie 45 Years, which I believe she was nominated for an Oscar and a couple other things. So
I just went on her IMDb to look at some of her movies, and I saw 45 Years. I thought that was just saying how long she was acting was 45 years. I didn't know there's an actual movie called
it's a bullet point, not a movie.
I would say if you're in a relationship or you've been married, don't watch that movie. So that's my advice for that.
Right.
So
cool. Greg, what are your final thoughts on Dune?
So I had 2 casting thoughts real quick, which was first of all Timothy Chalamet.
Where's
and
Sting?
Now where's Sting? Tim Chalamet. I don't think I've seen him in any other movies, although I know he's a big name. But
wow,
he impressed me in this for sure. I thought he was a great fit for the role and really was able to convey and emote as needed. So I am looking forward to checking out more of his stuff. And the other thing, Javier Bardem, another guy with not a big part, but talk about maximizing your minutes, man. Like anytime he was on screen, he was just electric with his charisma. He really plays like calm, cool, collected, mysterious guy. Just spot on. So I'm excited to see more of him as well. And just in general, I'm excited for more. Like I can't wait for Dune Part 2, which I never thought I would be saying.
Move it up. Move it up.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't make this like an Avatar Part 2 type thing where it's 20 years later. Let's give us Dune Part 2 as soon as possible. Warner Brothers, back up the dump trucks of money to Denis' house, whatever it's taken. But yeah, dude, looking forward to the next installment. Question for you guys is and I don't know if this is rhetorical or an actual question or whatever, but like, are they doing 3 parts or is it just 2 or is it undecided yet? Like, what's going on there?
So what I was hearing was like Denis just did and Harry mentioned earlier where I think like it was late in marketing that they said they were going to do a part 1. Now, like if you were kind of following the production, I think a lot of like they kind of said they saw like I think Denis, I don't know if Denis or someone had said. One of the cast members said that it's definitely going to be like a multi-picture kind of deal. But I think what they're going to do is like Dune has 15 books and it's a lot of it is like kind of, I guess you can compare it to like, with Lord of the Rings, like the Silmarillion, like it's a lot of explaining and a lot of like spin-offs, I guess, of the Dune world.
The universe,
But there's 2, there's the one book, and the rumor is that the 3rd movie is going to be Dune Messiah, which is its own book, that takes place after I guess would be Dune Part 2, assuming where they end it, which I think focuses. I haven't read Dune Messiah, but what it makes it, I kind of think it focuses a lot on Paul's kind of like role after the events of Dune.
Okay, so we think that Part 2 will cover up to the end of the OG and then
that's
part three
that's
will
what I
be-
would think. Yeah.
Okay.
Because a lot of people are saying like, and like I said, like I know, like reading the book 20 years ago, I know that part one, that's not where the book ended. Like that's kind of like there's still a lot more story to tell from the book. But I think this was like more halfway into the book where they ended it there, and the part two is going to focus on the second half of the main book.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool. All right. Any other final thoughts on Dune?
No. Greg, for Timothy Chalamet, watch The King on Netflix. It's about King Henry V, which is a really good. What was that face for, Harry?
I mean, if you're throwing out Timothy Chalamet work, I don't know if that's the first thing I would go to.
Well, I didn't see Call Me by Your Name, so
I would definitely. Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of problematic now. With,
or
the other
Little
actor in
Women.
The Lil Nas X video. I saw that. It's great.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he's
nice.
Don't get confused. He is not in that.
Okay. Lil Nas X
also
to the moon.
and he's in Interstellar. So if you want to watch that,
is he? I didn't know that.
Well, he's
the son when he's like 15. He's in it for like, like 3.
He also has a small role. He also has a small role in Lady Bird, which he's really good in, and that's a superior movie to King Richard for sure. So
sure, The King's good.
Okay.
Or Little Women. Watch that too. That's better.
Yeah. All right, so I've got some stuff on the list. All right. Well, thank you for the recos on that. We're done Dune talk, but Harry, you want to give us a summary of some of the awesome content you saw at the Philly Film Festival?
Yeah, listen. So obviously, when we were doing our last episode, I talked about the Philadelphia Film Festival was upon us, and it's I get to go with my friend Sean, Spencer, Mike. We're usually the culprits down there. My friend Dom. Sorry, Dom, I didn't mean to not include you on that. And they usually do a lot of, I would say, more art house things. So not a lot of things that probably you've heard of or seen, but they definitely try to lean into awards contenders. You could probably sometimes look at the New York Film Festival, or see some of the Cannes or Sundance and see kind of what's coming up the pike. So yeah, they usually do it for about 12 days. Anybody in the area, or I would highly suggest if you have a film festival in your area to try to get to it. It's a great way to support, theaters that aren't, the AMCs, the Regals of the world that are the most popular places. And, usually tickets are fairly cheap and you get to see movies, before they even come out. So I saw French Dispatch, which I won't spend too much time on because it's out now. So people can go get a chance to see it. But I felt like it was, some of the best Wes Anderson. I still think Budapest and Moonrise and, maybe even you can make the case some of his older work like, Rushmore are better, but I feel like this was a return to form. It's an ode to the New Yorker magazine. It's broken down into 5 parts. It's really kind of 3 mini movies in a way, but it's just a really fun time and very Wes Anderson-y. So if you're not in on Wes Anderson, I wouldn't suggest it because he's still doing his thing. So have you guys had a chance to see this one yet?
I have not. To be honest, I don't get a lot of
huge
time
Wes
to go out to. No, I absolutely am, but I don't get a ton of time to go out to the movies. So when I go, I usually see stuff that's going to be big and bombastic and all that stuff. I will definitely catch this, but probably not till it's like on home release.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same. I was anticipating this probably most of probably behind Dune. Like I'm a huge Wes Anderson fan, but like it's if this was like maybe 5 years ago when I went to the movies like 3-4 times a week, I probably would go see it. But yeah, I saved mine for Dune and Spider-Man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it'll definitely, I'm sure you guys will catch it, but, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets the usual kind of, 5 to 8 Oscar nominations, for different things. And it's just kind of nominated for a bunch and maybe doesn't, win too much. But I felt like this was another high point for Wes. So this next movie that I'm going to talk about is probably a smaller one. Definitely, you guys probably haven't heard of it, and maybe a lot of the fans out there haven't heard of it. But a lot of these movies that I saw really make you like think about life, and as far as like escapism, when we were talking about Dune, that's kind of what you're going for a lot of times. And these movies made me question a lot of things in life, and really reflect on your life. So the one film, Drive My Car. It's directed by Ryusuke Hamaguchi, I believe his name is. He's a young filmmaker. This is Japan's choice for Best International Film for this year's Oscars. So obviously no nominations have come out, but I wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't get a nomination. It is 3 hours long. And it really makes you think about your decisions in life and how to be more present in your life currently. And the story kind of tells that with some things that happen. When we talk about movies and you kind of see the opening credits or the opening scroll, this movie doesn't show you who the actors are, the title of the film, until about an hour into the movie. And you see why during it. So it's a real interesting picture. I would say if Oscars do come out, when they do later on, probably at the beginning of next year, I wouldn't be surprised if this is on the list for Best International Film. And it really kind of hits you and makes you ponder, how can I be more present and enjoyable and enjoy my life more currently.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Yeah, let's see. Next film, which you guys will probably be more interested in, and maybe the audience will be too, is Come On, Come On, directed by Mike Mills, who did the film Beginners with Ewan McGregor. And I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, and I shouldn't be. Just passed away recently. I'll come back to it. But anyway, so he did Beginners. This movie stars Joaquin Phoenix. He's a kind of a podcaster / NPR type guy who visits his sister, who's having some marital issues, and he spends time with his nephew, kind of watching him, and it just kind of involves them going around, the country in a way, because he's traveling to do interviews. This is filmed in black and white, so for people who isn't that their taste, would definitely say give it a shot, because it's a real heartwarming movie about family. And what we decide to do, what we share, what we don't share, and the mechanics that go into family dynamics. So I would say if you guys are looking, Joaquin Phoenix is obviously great in it, but I think it could be, I think he could get nominated. As far as this being nominated for any Best Pictures, I wouldn't say yes, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's snuck in. It depends on how it hangs around. So you guys have any interest in this one, or have you seen any coming attractions for it?
Haven't seen any coming attractions, but it sounds like something that would be right up my alley.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything on it.
Well, it's really good. So I think there might be a trailer out for it. So if you take a look at it, I think it would interest you guys as well, especially with young kids. That one recommended is probably the best thing I saw at the festival, or one of the best things for it. So one of the best performances I saw at the festival, we're just going to call this like awards time with Harry. This is great, guys. I hope the audience out there is thrilled and enthralled and can't wait till the next choice. So just trying to rush through these really quick. Spencer, Pablo Larraín, who did Jackie with Natalie Portman, about Jackie Kennedy or Jackie Onassis. And it stars Kristen Stewart, who absolutely I love, gets a bad rap for the Twilight films, but she's a wonderful actress. She plays Princess Diana. Greg, I can't wait till you see this and we can have a discussion about it. It's a really powerful performance in a movie that makes you feel suffocated with pressure. He does a really good job. It's beautifully made. Wouldn't be surprised if this wins awards for production, costumes, hair and makeup, possibly, set, whatever you want to call it. I will be surprised if Kristen Stewart is not nominated for Best Actress for this movie. So
does this focus on Princess Diana?
Yes. It focuses on a time. I forget exactly what year. I think it's like 93, 94, somewhere in there. But just a moment in time in her life. And just it's really intense. And like I said, it really makes you feel suffocated with pressure. Anybody who's been pressured at a job, school, you kind of get transformed into that, and you
that royal family, man.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not huge on the royal family, but this really stuck out for me. I think it was one of the best performances I saw. Hans, any thoughts on it? Skipping it?
I'll probably end up skipping it. I don't know. I've been hearing good things about Kristen Stewart. I don't like her resume for me isn't great, but this could turn it around. I don't know. I mean, look at Robert Pattinson. I haven't seen a lot of his movies, and I'm excited for Batman. So
I'm with you on Kristen Stewart, Hans. I did like her in Adventureland, but everything else can go bye-bye.
We've discussed before. I'm not an Adventureland guy, but
that's wrong. That's a bad take. Next film is called Red Rocket, directed by Sean Baker, who did The Florida Project and Tangerine. That movie, Tangerine, was on Netflix for a while. It stars Simon Rex of MTV and Scary Movie fame. It's about a former porn star falling on hard times due to pretty much his own stupidity, as you find out. And he comes back to his home state of Texas from California, and just chaos ensues. Sean Baker is a really interesting filmmaker. I don't want to call his films like low budget, but you can definitely get the sense of like you're almost watching I don't want to say real people, but like he definitely creates characters and puts them in a world that feels as though it could be taken out of the world of that place, whether it be in Florida, as his one movie, California, Texas. He does a really good job with that. So highly recommend this. It's kind of a comedy as well. And I'll be surprised if Simon Rex isn't getting Oscar buzz a little bit, but it wouldn't be a stretch for me because he's such a character in this movie, and it's pretty hilarious.
I did not see Tangerine, but I adore The Florida Project. I think that was a great movie, and yeah, you're right. He had a knack for making the characters, setting everything feel very realistic. So this one
very colorful movie
for
too.
Sure.
Yeah, and
I think out of
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say he uses color in a really interesting way to pop, and it's not like it stands out. It just kind of it flows so well in the movie where it's just like that becomes part of some characters even with it. So it's really cool, especially Florida Project.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Who hasn't been in that case where they're a porn star and something goes wrong and they got to go back to their hometown?
Oh man, I tell you, it's been a while, but I hear you.
Tale as old as time.
Next movie, I only got 4 more here, and the 2 of these last 4 are going to be really interesting, I think, for some people, especially our most avid listeners. So the next film is The Humans. It's based off a play, which has a twist on kind of a family drama. I'm not going to spoil it, but try to go in, without knowing too much, and maybe you might be surprised. Stars Richard Jenkins, Beanie Feldstein, Amy Schumer, Stephen Yeun, June Squibb, and Jane, I want to say her last name is Hudeshell. She was actually the actress who performed the role of the mother in the play. And you can tell, she really stands out in the movie, and her character kind of plays a central role. I mean, they all kind of play central roles and and again, another movie where it's, a family drama, family dynamics, and what, kind of baggage and emotion everybody kind of brings to the table with that. So, like I said, you can tell it's definitely off of a play. It kind of takes place in this one apartment in New York. But it has a twist on the family drama, which I would be interested to see how people feel about it. I wasn't 100% sold on it and didn't really love it as much as some of my friends who I went with, but it was still a pretty solid film. So keep that one in mind. A lot of good cast there. Antlers, that was directed by Scott Cooper, who did Crazy Heart. He did Hostel. There's another movie I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but it stars Kerry Russell and Jesse Plemons. This was kind of just subpar horror movie to me. I was hoping it would be a little bit more highbrow and a little bit more challenging, but it kind of fell apart with its story. Not trying to spoil it for anybody, but if you're into horror movies, I think there's things you'll find that you enjoy about this. But for me, it just kind of was your run-of-the-mill horror. That
was the gore in it.
It wasn't too bad. There were moments, but I think they're few and far between. But Jesse Plemons, man, just keep giving that guy roles and keep giving him things to do. Anytime Jesse Plemons is on screen, I love it. So this would probably be the only one that I came out of the festival being a little bit meh on, but everything else, I would say is pretty solid so far. The last 2 here, the one is King Richard. So this is the Will Smith movie, and for the fans out there, they know my feelings on Will Smith. So this is the story of the Williams sisters and how their father, Richard Williams, had a plan for them, growing up and trained them pretty much their whole life to be tennis stars. And as much as I hate and I love the knock on Will Smith, he killed it in this role. I'm not going to lie. Definitely going to be an Oscar nomination for sure. And I don't want to say it, but like, I felt like I wasn't watching Will Smith. I felt like I was watching a character. I felt like I was watching Richard Williams from seeing some, YouTube clips of interviews and kind of growing up with the Williams sister story, but not being too familiar. The movie it rides on Will Smith, but also has great supporting roles from the mother of the Williams sisters to the Williams sisters themselves. And John Bernthal in the movie, he absolutely kills it. He has a small role, small little cameo, but anytime Bernthal's in a movie, he absolutely kills it. So I hate to admit it, but I think Will Smith might might have a chance this year for it. So
wow.
as much as I bashed him, I gotta give him some credit here, because I think he really, really did a great job. This was probably the most popular screening that I went to too. And I mean, being in Philadelphia, Will Smith, and it's a story that I think, doesn't, and it's kind of a paint by numbers, as far as a sports, I want to say, inspirational movie. But I think the moments, sometimes they just hit you, and they hit you right in the feels. And, even though, you feel like you're being played to a little bit, it still kind of resonates really well, I think.
I was going to say, I think this film is probably, out of all the list of the titles that you saw, probably the most high profile, maybe French Dispatch, but yeah, this one's got a lot of buzz behind it.
Yeah. This one will definitely be up in during award season hands.
Greg, when you do the editing on this, can you go back and get the sound clip of Harry just ripping apart Will Smith?
Listen, I stand by what I said, but like he really surprised me in this. I came out pleasantly surprised.
Right now, play it. That you play right now after he says it.
So the final.
I know I'm actually excited to see this. I mean, I'm a Will Smith fan. I like, I going with John Bernthal. I'm a huge fan of his. Like I like pretty much everything I've seen him in. I think he does a great job. Like he is, when we talk about actors with range, I feel like he's all over the place in a good way. But Will Smith, I even like Collateral Beauty, so I'm a big fan of Will Smith. So looking forward to this.
I think
this is the only, other than taking out French Dispatch, I think this is the only movie that I've actually seen a trailer for that of these movies. So and the Twilight one, Spencer.
Yeah, I think Spencer and Red Rocket.
The
Twilight one. Spencer and Come On, I think will definitely get some awards love. So I think you'll hear with them, because they're not even out yet. And that's the other thing too with this is like, I'm talking about movies that like won't come out for another couple weeks, and then you'll start to kind of hear them in the, on the Twitter, as they say.
Are any of these like set for like a streaming release, or are they all theatrical? Do you know?
I would probably say, usually I would say in the last couple of years. So last year, the Philadelphia Film Festival was pretty much all digital because of COVID, rightly so. There were some drive-ins, but like sometimes those were tough to get to. But I would say usually Netflix has a pretty big presence there, but this year they didn't. And I was surprised at that. There wasn't anything, like Harder They Fall, which I know might have just come out today of our recording. Usually they have one or two, but I'm also trying to think. I think the Leo movie, directed by we mentioned him earlier, Adam McKay, that's coming out in like Christmas. Like that would have been something that I think I would have wanted to see, right? But Don't Look Up. But it wouldn't have been something at a Philadelphia Film Festival premiere. So like I remember Irishman was like a premiere at the New York Film Festival, and that's why it was at the Philly one. But it depends on the time of the release. And I think a lot of things have either, because there was a couple awards contenders like Titan, which would have been a perfect one that would have been at the festival, but just came out earlier than I think people had anticipated. So Last Night in Soho is another one. And even French Dispatch, like I saw that a day before it actually came out. So it wasn't really like, Last Night in Soho would have been one too, but like, would have maybe been more of a Thanksgiving release that would have made more sense for it. But sometimes it's just timing. But yeah, nothing that I think is straight to streaming. There might have been stuff there, but I either didn't see it or didn't catch it, because usually there are one or two that'll literally be on like Amazon like a week or two later for it. But the best thing I saw at the festival, I think besides Come On, because I'm debating on it, but I think it was The Worst Person in the World. Which it's hard to talk about because I'm unfamiliar with the director. And this was kind of a movie. Sometimes when you go to festivals, or sometimes, when you're scrolling through Netflix, or, you're scrolling through Hulu, and it's just like, I'm going to take a chance, you know what I mean? Or you kind of just throw your arms up and say, this looks like in my lane. And this is another movie that kind of you watch and you think about your life. It's about a story of a woman in 4 years in her life. The character's name is Julie. It's played by, I hope I pronounced her name right, Renate Renavese. I hope I'm saying that right, but yeah, Harkonnen, exactly. But her performance in this is absolutely astounding. She really, this movie is so beautifully told, so relatable in just the way of even if you're in your 30s, your 20s, getting out of college, being a parent, I think there's a lot of things that you can take away from this movie. And there's a scene in this movie where Julie is running across Oslo. The director, Joachim Trier, he's kind of done 2 other movies with Oslo. And he's a director that I would love to visit some more of his work. But there's a scene when she's running across Oslo that's really just wonderful. Probably one of the best scenes I saw at the festival. If you want to break it down like that, and just would highly recommend this. This might be one that I would highly recommend for people that, like, if you see it come across your radar on a streaming platform at some point, or you're going out to a theater and you're unsure, maybe you've seen, some of the big movies, but this one I think will get some Oscar buzz. Hopefully for best international, or hopefully for best picture, hopefully for best actress, possibly even best director. But really, really enjoyed this film. But again, it's another film that leaves you at the end of it being like, life, what a ride. So yeah, but would highly suggest this to anybody out there. This one and Come On would be the 2, and Spencer. And King Richard, actually. Sorry, the more I talk about it, the more
all of them,
except Antlers.
Yeah, but listen, I mean, I think there's always something at the festival for people to enjoy. And like I said, if you ever get an opportunity to go to a festival, or to kind of see some earlier movies, especially if they're going to be Oscar-y, that's my lane. So yeah, so this has been awards 20 minutes with Harry. I appreciate the time for it. So
thanks for the indie roundup.
Yeah, hopefully there's something in there for you guys to catch, and we can rediscuss, or hopefully there'll be something that the fans out there are excited to see, and they'll now they're taking my recommendations and then running with it. I love it.
I actually have to be a little honest. I did see the trailer for The Worst Person in the World, and I was kind of intrigued by it. So there's that.
You did?
No, I really did. I'm not lying.
Oh yeah.
I was
really
kind of intrigued by it. Yeah. So I will
really
check that
movie.
out if it comes on streaming, because I'm not paying for it.
Well, we'll do a pod when it's out. I'll take you to the movies. I'll just go in with my A-list, and I'll scan you in, and then you can just go in. I'll go out the back door. It'll be great.
Look for Art House Takes coming soon.
Yeah, my new podcast, The Worst Person in the World.
Listen, in a couple months, everyone, we're going to be doing Oscar roundup every episode. I'll be talking about the new races, who's up, who's in the lead, who isn't. It'll be great.
Yeah, I don't know why we didn't do an Oscar podcast when that came around this year. It's kind of a strange
last
thing.
year. It was weird last year.
Yeah,
it was moved.
A lot of stuff was coming
late.
out in different times, and it was just like I think like we had other topics. Yeah.
No, we'll definitely do one this year, or next year, as it were. All right. Well, thank you, Harry. Thank you for the roundup, and boys, it was a pleasure talking Dune with you guys, both the OG and the new version. Harry, anything for the peeps?
Listen, we get to talk about Dune, and we get to talk about art house movies. I am in my bag. I'm in my lane. Appreciate everyone listening. I hope you guys enjoyed Dune as much as we did. I hope you guys get to see some of the movies that I talked about that I saw at the festival when they come out. Keep an eye out on them. I'll definitely, we'll definitely circle back on some of them, and appreciate everyone listening.
Mm-hmm. Hands, anything for the peeps?
Thanks for listening to our love of Dune. If you made it this far, as always with our shows, because we do spoil a lot, if you haven't seen it but you still listen to the episode anyway, thank you. So what you should do is watch the 1984 version, watch the 21, actually watch 1984, listen to our podcast, watch 2021, come back and listen to our podcast, and then go to the film festivals and watch all these movies and listen a third time.
That's a whole lot of movies. Make sure you got plenty of spice to get you through.
You're gonna need to be on some.
Wait a minute.
To be able to get through all of them.
How did we not even pick that up as Papa Spice, and we just wanted a review of 2 movies that their main plot revolved around.
That is a fair
drug
point.
dealing
I didn't even
spice.
think about that. I'm not the drug spice.
The movie for the people.
Yes.
The movie for the spice heads out there all around the world.
Well, thank you everybody, as always, for tuning in or listening. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review if you're on iTunes. Give us comments on your takes on Dune or any of the movies that Harry mentioned, or just movies in general. If there's anything you want to hear us talk about, by all means, let us know. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and as always, Spice Fam, keep it spicy.